Sometimes the hardest stories aren't the loud ones. They're the quiet moments where one decision changes everything. Today's stories aren't about heroes or villains. They're about people who thought they were doing the right thing and had to live with the consequences. Some of these choices were justified, some went too far, and some crossed a line that can't be uncrossed. These are real stories from Reddit, told in their own words, and once you hear them, it's hard to forget them. Story 1. Hiring a fake kid to prove his wife wrong. I need to start by saying this wasn't some fight or serious argument. It started as one of those stupid harmless debates couples have when they're watching a movie together. My wife and I were watching Elf. We've been together for 12 years, married for 10, and we know each other ridiculously well. Or at least, I thought I did. There's this scene in the movie where Buddy's biological dad finally tells his wife that he has an adult son from before they met. And in the movie, the wife is immediately on board. She's excited. She's supportive. Zero hesitation. I laughed and said, yeah, that's not realistic. If that were real life, no way the wife would be cool with it. My wife looked at me and said, very confidently, I would be. I told her she absolutely would not. I said even if it happened before we met, even if I genuinely didn't know the kid existed, she'd still be mad. She doubled down, told me I was wrong, completely wrong. And here's where I made my mistake, because instead of letting it go like a normal human being, I decided I needed proof. I jokingly said something like, I could have a kid knock on the door right now and you wouldn't be mad? She laughed and said, correct. So my brain went, challenge accepted. I didn't tell her what I was planning. I didn't even hint at it. I went online and made a post asking if anyone in their early 20s wanted to make $100 pretending to be my long-lost kid. I honestly didn't expect much. I thought maybe 1 or 2 people would message me. I was wrong. I had a flood of responses, way more than I expected. Some people even looked like they could actually be related to me, which was unsettling. A lot of them bailed once they realized they'd have to actually show up and talk to a stranger's wife face to face. I don't blame them. The idea sounds funny until you imagine standing on someone's porch doing it. Eventually, I found someone who was brave enough to go through with it. He was confident, calm, and honestly a way better actor than I deserved. We came up with a backstory. He'd be about 22. His mom would be an ex-girlfriend I'd mentioned to my wife once years ago. He wasn't there for money, he just wanted to meet me and maybe exchange numbers. The day comes and I'm already nervous, like actually nervous. There's a part of my brain screaming, this is too much, abort mission. But I'd already committed. The doorbell rings, our dog loses his mind like always, my wife answers the door. I pretend I've stepped away to take a phone call so she answers it first. I hear this kid introduce himself and ask if I'm home. My wife calls my name and I walk over. He looks at me and says there's something kind of strange he needs to talk to me about. My wife invites him inside without thinking twice. I almost blow the whole thing right there because I would never casually invite a stranger in, but somehow I keep it together. We sit down, I offer him a drink, he declines. He's visibly nervous, which I later find out wasn't acting at all. Then he says, do you remember her name? The exact name of an old ex-girlfriend I'd casually mentioned once in the past. I say, yeah. He says, that's my mom. And immediately my wife reacts before I can even process it. She gasps, full shock mode. She's already putting the puzzle together faster than I am. I'm pretending to be confused. She's staring at me like I'm the slowest man alive. She actually interrupts him and says, I think he's telling you that he believes you're his father. I nearly lost it. The kid confirms it, says he's 22, says his mom only told him recently, says she didn't speak badly about me, just said it was over and she had already moved on when she found out she was pregnant. My wife is completely silent now, just absorbing everything. I ask the obvious questions. Does his dad know? Yes. Has he always known he wasn't biologically related? Yes. He just wanted answers, closure, maybe a phone number. He makes it very clear he's not asking for anything. No money, no drama, just curiosity. We exchange numbers, then his phone rings. He apologizes and says he has to go. I walk him out. I come back inside and do my best impression of a man whose entire reality just changed. And here's where everything went wrong for me. My wife wasn't mad, not even a little. She was amazed, genuinely fascinated. She kept saying how wild it was, how cool it would be to have an unexpected adult son, how interesting it must feel to suddenly discover you might have a son. She wasn't suspicious, she wasn't angry, she wasn't upset, she was excited. We talked about it for hours, hypothetically, what it would mean, what kind of relationship it could be. She even joked about what kind of gifts you'd buy an adult kid you just met. And that's when I realized I had lost. I finally confessed, told her the entire thing was fake, told her I paid the guy, told her it was all just to prove a point. She stared at me for about 2 seconds and then burst out laughing. She laughed harder than I'd seen her laugh in years. She said she couldn't decide what was funnier, the fact that I went through all that effort or the fact that I managed to prove myself completely wrong. She told me I was lucky my son wasn't a serial killer. She told me next time I could save $100 and just assume she knows herself better than I do. Then she smiled and said, "You know I'm getting you back for this, right?" I'm still a little worried about that part. But yeah, turns out I don't know my wife as well as I thought. And she was right.
Story 2. I gave up on love because of how I look. I'm going to say something that usually makes people uncomfortable, but it's the truth. I'm unattractive. Not in a self-pity, fishing for compliments way. I mean objectively. I have a face that people struggle to look at for too long, and I have visible scars on my body that tend to make people uneasy. I've had most of them my entire life, so this isn't new to me. I grew up knowing I looked different. I tried to compensate. I really did. I stayed in shape. I took care of myself. I built a decent career. I'm tall, I work out, I dress well. None of that mattered. I was rejected over and over again, sometimes politely, sometimes brutally. Eventually, I did manage to date someone. I thought she could look past my appearance. I lost my virginity to her. I thought maybe, just maybe, I'd finally gotten lucky. About a month in, she came over crying. She told me she liked me as a person, but she couldn't do it anymore. She said being intimate with me was extremely difficult for her. Not emotionally, physically, because of how I look. I told her I understood, and I meant it. But something in me broke after that. I swore off dating entirely. Life actually got better when I stopped trying. I stopped chasing something that clearly wasn't meant for me. I accepted that I probably wouldn't experience romantic love, and weirdly, that acceptance brought peace. I made good friends instead. Sam and Sarah became my closest friends. They're great people, kind, social, well-meaning. Unfortunately, they also couldn't accept my decision to stop dating. They had this fantasy about us going on double dates, triple dates, me included. And no matter how many times I told them I didn't want to date, they kept trying to set me up. Sometimes they'd surprise me with it. Sometimes they'd invite a woman to a party and just drop us together like that was somehow romantic. Every time, it was humiliating. I could see it in the women's eyes, the moment of realization, the discomfort, the fear mixed with pity. I hated it. Not just for myself, but for them too. They didn't sign up for this. I begged Sam and Sarah to stop. They never did. Then one day, Sarah started showing me pictures of a woman from work, talking her up, saying how perfect we'd be together. I could already see where this was going. I asked her a simple question. Has she seen a picture of me? She said no. I asked if she even knew I existed. She said no. And that's when I snapped. I told them to stop playing matchmaker. I told them I was done being the project. I showed them texts from previous women who had been kind enough to be honest with me about why it didn't work. The room went quiet. Sam and Sarah left shortly after. They didn't talk to me for a week. I honestly thought I'd lost my friends too. After a lot of reading and thinking, I reached out. We met up. They apologized. Genuinely.
They said they finally understood how harmful they'd been, even if their intentions were good. They promised to stop. A few days later, they invited me over for drinks and games. Sarah admitted that the woman from work would be there, but she promised there would be no pressure, no setup, no expectations. I went. That's where I met Laura. She was normal, kind, easy to talk to. We bonded over work, movies, and complaining about our jobs. There was no weird energy, no pressure, no expectation. For the first time in years, I just made a new friend. We started hanging out more, just as friends. Then one night, she asked me out. I was terrified, but I said yes. She wasn't bothered by my scars. She didn't pretend not to see them. She just accepted them. She looked at me with warmth and kindness in a way I still don't fully understand. We're together now. We live together. I'm planning to propose next year. Sam and Sarah are still my friends. We go on those triple dates they always dreamed about. I'm still not attractive, but I'm happy. And for the first time in my life, that feels like enough. Story 3. I was drugged at work and almost lost everything. I live in California, so marijuana is legal here. That's important context. I'd always been a little curious about trying it, but I never actually had. My wife is strongly against it, and I didn't want to create problems at home, so I just avoided it. I also never went to dispensaries, never smoked, never used edibles, nothing. One day at work, a coworker of mine came in with a box of homemade brownies. He worked part-time at a dispensary, but that didn't immediately set off alarm bells for me. He offered me one. I asked him directly, "There's no weed in these, right?" He laughed and said no. So I ate one, quickly, with my coffee, like an idiot. About 30 minutes later, something felt very wrong. My heart started racing out of nowhere. I was sweating, my hands were shaking. I felt like I couldn't breathe unless I actively focused on every breath. It felt like my body had suddenly decided to panic without my permission. I honestly thought I was having a heart attack. I'd never felt anxiety like that before, ever. I asked my boss to call an ambulance because I genuinely thought I might die at my desk. The paramedics showed up, asked if I'd taken anything, and I told them no. I didn't know what was happening. At the hospital, they told me I was having a severe anxiety attack. I was embarrassed, confused, still terrified. Then I got a text. It was from my coworker. He told me the brownie did have marijuana in it. He said it thought it would be funny to see me high at work. That text made my blood run cold. I showed it to the paramedic. He told me to hydrate, relax, and ride it out. Medically, I was going to be okay. Emotionally, I was furious. I felt violated. I never consented to that. I explicitly asked. He lied. The next day, I reported everything to HR and my manager. They wanted statements from both of us. My coworker lied again. He told HR that I knew the brownie had marijuana and took it anyway to get through the workday. He also said I'd been asking him to let me try weed. That part was technically true. I had asked him about trying marijuana someday, but never at work, never without consent, never like this. What saved me was that text message. I showed HR the screenshot where he admitted it was an edible and said it thought it would be funny to see me high at work. After that, things moved fast. I was sent home. I filed for workers' compensation. HR investigated further. The next day, my manager called me in. My coworker had been fired. Charges were being pressed. I asked if it was possible to notify the dispensary he worked at because I didn't want him doing this to anyone else. My manager actually made the call himself. I don't know what happened after that, and honestly, I don't care. What still bothers me is how easily this could have gone worse. I could have crashed my car driving home. I could have collapsed alone. I could have lost my job if I didn't have proof, all because someone thought drugging a coworker was a joke. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted accountability. And this time, at least, I got it.
Story 4. One lie destroyed my marriage. I never thought I'd be telling this story alone. My husband and I had been married a little over 5 years. It wasn't a perfect marriage, but it was stable, loving, and safe. He was kind. He respected me. He treated my daughter well. My daughter is 19. She's from a previous relationship. My husband was never trying to replace her father, but they had a decent relationship. He gave advice. He showed up. There was never anything inappropriate, not once. I genuinely believed our family was solid. Then one night, everything fell apart. We were watching a movie in the living room when my husband paused it and said he needed to use the bathroom. I heard him knock, loudly, multiple times. I could hear it clearly from the couch. A few seconds later, I heard screaming. I ran down the hallway and saw my daughter naked in the bathroom, covering herself and yelling at my husband to get out. He was tripping over his own feet, trying to back out and close the door. It was chaos. Once things calmed down, my husband explained what happened. He knocked, no one answered, he assumed the bathroom was empty and walked in. The second he realized she was there, he tried to leave. When I asked my daughter, she said he didn't knock. I told her I heard him knock. She said she had earbuds in and didn't hear anything. It was awkward, uncomfortable, but it seemed like a misunderstanding. My husband apologized immediately. My daughter hugged him and apologized for yelling. I thought that was the end of it. I was wrong. A few days later, my sister called me, furious. She accused my husband of being a creep, asked how I could still live with him, asked how I could allow him around my daughter. I was blindsided. As it turns out, my daughter had told family members a completely different version of the story. She left out the earbuds. She told them she answered him and he walked in anyway. We have cameras in our hallway. The footage clearly showed my husband knocking. I confronted my daughter. At first, she denied saying anything. Then she admitted she had talked about it to her niece and claimed it got out of hand. She said she was just talking, making up scenarios. Meanwhile, the story was spreading. Family members were calling, texting, messaging, saying horrible things about my husband, calling him names I can't even repeat. I begged my daughter to fix it, to tell the truth. She refused. She said if she admitted it, people would think badly of her. She thought it would blow over. It didn't. One night, my husband came into the living room with his bags packed. He said he was going to stay with his parents for a while. He said he couldn't live in a situation where people believed he was that kind of man. That was the moment everything shattered. My daughter broke down, apologized, promised she'd fix it. But the damage was already done. Later, my husband came back to talk. He recorded the conversation. He told my daughter to read the messages people had sent him. I watched something break inside her as she realized the consequences. They talked for hours. At the end, my husband said he wanted a divorce. He said he didn't hate me. He said he didn't even hate my daughter, but he couldn't take the risk anymore. His reputation, his job, his entire life had been put in danger by a lie. He said he'd give us 3 months. He'd pay for my daughter's tuition for the year. Then he was done. When he left, I saw him sitting in his car crying. That image still haunts me. My daughter eventually told the truth to the family, shared the camera footage. Everyone suddenly wanted to apologize. I didn't answer the door. I didn't respond to messages. It was too late. My daughter tried to contact my husband again and again. He got a restraining order. She violated it. She was arrested. She had to drop out of college because he stopped paying. He warned us both not to contact him again. I begged him. I asked for counseling. I asked for another chance. He never responded. I lost my husband. My daughter lost everything. And I'm left sitting with the reality that one lie, told for attention, fear, or control, destroyed an entire family. Some things can't be fixed. And knowing that is the hardest part.
Story 5. I left my wallet at home on purpose. This story's a lot smaller than the last one, but somehow it stuck with me just as much. I'm 28, and I have a close friend I've known for years. She's fun, outgoing, and honestly a good person, except for one thing. She always forgets her wallet. Every time we go out to eat, it's the same routine. The check comes, she pats her pockets, digs through her purse, makes a big show of it, and then looks at me with that embarrassed smile. Oh my God, I forgot my wallet. At first, I didn't mind. Stuff happens. I covered it. Then it kept happening. Dinner after dinner, drinks, coffee, always the same excuse. And somehow it was always me who paid. She'd promised to get me next time, and next time never came. I started to feel taken advantage of. I tried hinting, I tried joking about it. Nothing changed. So one night, before we went out to dinner, I made a decision. I left my wallet at home, not by accident, on purpose. We sat down, ordered our food, chatted like normal. I felt weirdly anxious the entire meal, but I stuck with it. When the check came, right on cue, she went through her usual performance. "Oh my God, I forgot my wallet." I looked at her and calmly said, "Me too." The look on her face was immediate. Shock, disgust, panic. For a moment, she just stared at me like I'd committed some kind of social crime. Then she started whisper yelling about how I'd embarrassed her, how cruel it was to put her on the spot like that. I didn't raise my voice. I just told her I was tired of always paying without it ever being acknowledged. Here's the funny part. She pulled out her phone and paid with Apple Pay, which meant she could have paid her share the entire time. Dinner ended awkwardly. She was clearly upset. I was uncomfortable, but also relieved. Later, she texted me saying I humiliated her and that a real friend wouldn't do that. I told her a real friend also wouldn't repeatedly forget their wallet and quietly expect someone else to cover for them. We didn't talk for a few days. Eventually, she apologized. Not dramatically, just a simple apology. And since then, she hasn't forgotten her wallet once. I didn't want to embarrass her. I just wanted the pattern to stop. And honestly, it worked. Sometimes the only way to end a bad habit is to stop enabling it.
Story 6. I finally told his mom the truth. I broke up with my ex just a few days before Christmas. We'd been together for a while, and from the outside, things probably looked fine. But they weren't. The breakup wasn't mutual, and it wasn't dramatic in the way people imagine. It was quiet, heavy, necessary. A few days after Christmas, his mom texted me. She told me she missed me, said she hoped I was feeling better, said she was looking forward to seeing me soon. That's when I realized something. He hadn't told his parents we broke up. In fact, he told them I was sick. That was why I didn't come for Christmas. I reached out to him and asked why he hadn't been honest. He told me it wasn't their business and that I should leave his family alone. I didn't argue. I figured it would sort itself out. Then, a few days before New Year's Eve, his mom texted me again. She asked if I was coming to their family party. I couldn't keep pretending, so I told her we'd broken up. She asked why. I told her to ask her son. That should have been the end of it. Instead, my ex exploded. He accused me of crossing a line, said what happened between us was private, and that I had no right to tell his family anything. I dropped it. I didn't tell her details. I didn't tell anyone. Then I found out he was telling people his version of the story. According to him, he broke up with me because I was crazy. That word hit harder than I expected, because the truth was he got blackout drunk and got physical with me, more than once. I had bruises. I had photos. I stayed quiet at first because I didn't want to turn my life into a public mess. I didn't want pity. I didn't want drama. But hearing him lie, hearing him rewrite what happened and make me the villain, something snapped. I told a mutual friend the truth, and then I did something I'd been going back and forth on for days. I told his mom. I sent her a message explaining exactly why we broke up. I told her about the drinking, the violence, the fear. I sent the photos of my injuries. I didn't do it to hurt her. I did it because I refused to let him paint me as unstable while he walked away clean. His mom believed me. She apologized over and over. She told me she was ashamed and that she was so sorry I'd gone through that. Then my ex blew up my phone. He said I'd ruined his life, said I had no right, said what happened between us was no one else's business. But here's the thing. If he didn't want people to know what he did, he shouldn't have done it. I never planned to tell anyone. I didn't want revenge. I just wanted the truth to exist somewhere outside of my head. I don't regret telling his mom. I regret that I ever had to. Sometimes staying silent protects the wrong person, and this time I chose not to stay quiet.
If there's one thing these stories have in common, it's this: intentions don't always matter as much as impact. A joke can turn serious, a lie can destroy trust, and sometimes telling the truth comes at a cost you never expected. If any of these stories made you stop and think, you're not alone. That's why people share them in the first place. Thanks for listening. And if you want more real stories like these, you know where to find us. This is Reddit Echoes.